Professor Sarah Chen stood at the entrance of the Galactic Academy's lecture hall, watching as her new students ducked through doorways designed for beings half their size. The irony wasn't lost on her. A human instructor barely reaching 5 feet tall, teaching warfare history to beings who towered above her like living skyscrapers. A Xenthian student, skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, had to crouch down to avoid scraping their crystalline crest against the ceiling. Their translator hummed softly as they addressed her. "Instructor, I mean no disrespect, but how can your species understand advanced warfare when you are so compact?" Sarah smiled, having expected this reaction. She reached for the holographic controls at her podium, and the room darkened. Above their heads, a 3-dimensional image of ancient Earth materialized, showing terrain that made several students gasp. "On my world," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "we fought in every environment you see before you. Frozen tundras where the air itself could kill, deserts hot enough to cook flesh, jungles teeming with predators, mountains that pierce the clouds. We didn't have the luxury of choosing our battlefields. We adapted to them all." The Phloetian student, a being of gaseous matter contained within an environmental suit, drifted closer to examine the hologram. "But Professor, surely such diverse combat environments would require completely different physiological adaptations." Sarah nodded, switching the display to show human soldiers throughout history. "We didn't adapt our bodies. We adapted our minds and our tools. Look at these images. Roman legionnaires marching through snow, Mongolian horsemen sweeping across steppes, Navy SEALs emerging from ocean depths. Each environment presented unique challenges, and humans found ways to overcome them all." A collective murmur rippled through the class as the images shifted to show various human weapons and armor. The Methian student, composed of living crystal, raised an appendage. These seemed primitive compared to modern plasma weapons. Sarah's smile widened as she brought up a new hologram, a timeline of human warfare evolution. Primitive, perhaps. But consider this. Every weapon you see here was developed because it solved a specific problem. We didn't start with energy weapons and work backwards. We started with sticks and stones, and through countless iterations, developed increasingly effective tools of warfare. The Hive Mind Collective in the back corner buzzed with interest, their shared consciousness processing the information. Query: how did humans determine effective combat strategies without unified consciousness? "An excellent question," Sarah replied, projecting images of ancient battle formations. "We developed complex systems of command and control. Hand signals, drum beats, flag systems, radio communications. Each innovation allowed us to coordinate larger and more complex military operations. Without natural telepathy, we had to create our own methods of battlefield communication." The Xenthian student who had initially questioned her raised their crystalline hand. "But Professor, our historical records show minimal conflict on our homeworld. Why did humans engage in so much warfare?" Sarah's expression grew thoughtful as she switched the display to show Earth's resource distribution. "Scarcity, primarily. Unlike your garden worlds, Earth's resources weren't evenly distributed. We fought over water, land, minerals, energy sources. Each conflict drove innovation, pushing us to develop new strategies and technologies." The class fell silent as they studied the complex web of resource conflicts displayed before them. Sarah could see the moment understanding began to dawn in their eyes, or equivalent sensory organs. "By the end of this course," she continued, "you'll understand why humans are classified as a Deathworld species. Not because we're inherently violent, but because our planet's challenges forced us to become incredibly adaptable. Every tool, every strategy, every innovation came at a price, but each one ensured our survival." As the first class drew to a close, Sarah noticed the Xenthian student lingering behind. They had to bend almost double to speak with her, but their tone carried newfound respect. "Professor, I believe I owed you an apology. I hadn't considered that physical size might be irrelevant when measuring a species' capacity for warfare." Sarah nodded, beginning to power down the holographic systems. That's your first lesson then. Never underestimate any opponent, no matter their size. Humanity learned that lesson countless times throughout our history, often the hard way. The Xenthians' bioluminescent patterns shifted to indicate understanding as they carefully maneuvered their way out of the lecture hall, leaving Sarah to prepare for tomorrow's lesson on siege warfare, a concept she suspected would thoroughly unsettle her Garden World students. The second day of class began with Professor Chen wheeling in a large covered object. The Phoenician student drifted nervously near the ceiling, their gaseous forms swirling with anxiety as they watched her unveil a detailed terrain model. "Today," she announced, "we're discussing how humans learned to fight when they couldn't see the enemy." With a tap on her control pad, the terrain model came alive, showing a cross-section of battlefield tunnels that stretched like an ant colony beneath the surface. The crystalline Methian student leaned forward, facets glinting with interest. "These passages appear too narrow for effective combat. How did your species manage movement in such confined spaces?" Professor Chen dimmed the room's lights and activated a holographic simulation. Miniature human soldiers appeared, crawling through the tunnels with weapons and equipment. "We adapted. When we couldn't stand, we crawled. When we couldn't bring heavy weapons, we invented smaller ones. The tunnels became our advantage." A collective shudder passed through the class as they watched the simulation show humans emerging from hidden entrances, striking without warning before disappearing back into the earth. The Xenthian students' bioluminescent patterns flickered rapidly, indicating distress. "But Professor," they asked, their translator struggling to convey their unease, "how did humans overcome the psychological burden of fighting in darkness, underground?" Chen switched the display to show various tunnel detection methods. "We developed technologies to see in the dark, to detect movement through solid earth, to listen for the faintest sounds of digging. But more importantly, we trained our minds to overcome the primal fear of being buried alive." The hive mind collective at the back of the room vibrated with curiosity, their shared consciousness processing this new information. Query: did this subterranean warfare capability provide significant tactical advantages? "Indeed," Chen replied, moving to the next demonstration. She revealed a scaled model of a medieval siege engine, a trebuchet. But underground warfare was just one aspect. Above ground, we developed machines like this to break through fortifications. The class gathered around the model, their diverse forms creating an unusual tableau. Chen loaded the trebuchet with a small foam projectile. "Would anyone like to try?" The Phoenician student, still hovering nervously, volunteered their environmental suit's manipulator arm. With Chen's guidance, they pulled back the throwing arm and released it. The projectile soared across the room, accidentally shattering one of the reinforced windows designed for beings 3 times human size. Alarmed buzzing and crystalline chiming filled the room as the students realized the power of even a scaled-down human weapon. The Methian students' crystalline structure resonated with excitement. The kinetic force calculations are remarkable for such a primitive device. Chen smiled, already noticing maintenance drones arriving to repair the window. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Humanity's greatest strength was learning to use simple physics to devastating effect. She moved on to demonstrate other siege weapons through holograms, explaining how humans had turned the basic principles of leverage and momentum into tools of warfare. The students watched in fascination as virtual castles crumbled under synchronized attacks. "But what protected against such weapons?" asked the Xenthian, their massive form casting shadows over the demonstration table. Chen switched the display to show fortress evolution. "We built walls, then stronger walls. We developed countermeasures, then countermeasures. Each innovation in attack sparked a corresponding innovation in defense." The class spent the remainder of the session designing their own defensive structures, applying their species' unique perspectives to human fortification principles. The Hive Mind Collective created an intricate network of interconnected barriers, while the Phoenician designed floating fortresses that could drift beyond siege weapon range. As the session drew to a close, Chen surveyed the various designs with approval. "Remember," she said, gathering their attention, "humans didn't just build these fortifications for protection. They built them to endure, to outlast any siege. Some of our ancient castles still stand today, thousands of years later." The Methian student lingered after class, examining the trebuchet model. "Professor, I understand now why the Council insists we study human warfare. Your species turned simple tools into instruments of incredible power." Chen nodded, carefully storing the model. "Tomorrow, we'll discuss how humans harness chemistry for warfare. I suggest everyone wear their protective equipment." She glanced at the broken window being repaired. "And perhaps we should request a more robust classroom." Professor Chen entered the reinforced laboratory wearing standard Earth protective gear, her students already clad in their various species-specific safety equipment. The Phloetian's environmental suit had additional filters installed, while the Methian's crystalline form was coated in a protective resin. "Today," she announced, setting up a controlled demonstration chamber, "we'll explore how humans learn to weaponize the basic elements of our world." She gestured to a series of carefully measured compounds arranged before her. The Zenthian students' bioluminescent patterns swirled with concern. "Professor, our research indicates that humans discovered most reactive elements through accidents. How did your species survive such dangerous experimentation?" Chen carefully mixed two harmless compounds, creating a dramatic but safe color change reaction. "Trial and error, mostly. Many early human chemists died advancing our understanding. Each accident taught us more about the substances we were working with." She projected a timeline of human explosive development, starting with early black powder. The Methian students' crystalline structure vibrated with interest as they analyzed the chemical formulas. "These combinations seem incredibly unstable. The risk factors must have been extraordinary." "Correct," Chen confirmed, demonstrating the power of a tiny amount of black powder in a controlled blast chamber. The explosion, though small, made several students recoil. Humans learned to control these reactions, to harness their power for both destruction and construction. The hive mind collective moved closer, their shared consciousness processing the chemical equations displayed above the demonstration table. Query: how did humans prevent accidental detonation during transport and storage? Chen smiled, pulling up historical designs for various safety mechanisms. Another excellent question. We developed intricate systems of safeguards, fail-safes, and containment protocols. Every accident led to new safety measures. The Phloetian student, their gaseous form swirling anxiously within their reinforced suit, raised an appendage. "But Professor, our species abandoned chemical warfare research after one laboratory accident. How did humans maintain their resolve?" "Necessity," Chen replied, switching to a display of mining operations. "These same explosives helped us build tunnels, clear construction sites, and access mineral deposits. We learned to respect the power of these compounds while harnessing their beneficial applications." She guided the class through a series of safe demonstrations, showing how humans had progressively developed more stable and controllable compounds. The Zenthian's massive form leaned forward with interest as Chen explained the principles of shaped charges and directed explosions. "Notice," she pointed out, "how we learned to focus the explosive force. Instead of just creating bigger explosions, we developed ways to direct the energy precisely where we needed it." The Methian student, who had been taking detailed notes, raised a crystalline appendage. "Professor, our analysis suggests that human chemical warfare development progressed faster than any other species. What drove this rapid advancement?" Chen's expression grew serious as she brought up images of early industrial development. Competition and conflict drove innovation. Each nation raced to develop more effective compounds, leading to both terrible weapons and beneficial discoveries. She demonstrated how the same chemical principles that created explosives also led to advances in medicine, manufacturing, and space exploration. The students watched in fascination as she showed them the dual applications of various compounds. "Your species truly mastered the elements," the Zenthian observed, their patterns showing both admiration and concern. But at what cost? That's a profound question, Chen acknowledged, beginning to secure the demonstration materials. The cost was high. In lives, in environmental damage, in ethical consequences. But these discoveries also gave us new medicines, new materials, new ways to explore our world and beyond. As the class concluded, the hive mind collective remained behind, their consciousness focused on the sealed containers of demonstration materials. Final query: did human chemical mastery ultimately prove more constructive or destructive? Chen carefully locked the last safety cabinet before responding. That's something we're still debating. Like any tool, chemical compounds are neutral. It's how we choose to use them that matters. Remember that for tomorrow's class on aerial warfare developments. The collective buzzed thoughtfully as they departed, leaving Chen to reflect on how their garden world perspectives were gradually shifting as they began to understand the complex relationship between human survival, innovation, and warfare. The zero-gravity chamber hummed softly as Professor Chen floated before her class, her movements precise and controlled. The wind-born student, naturally adapted to aerial movement, watched with particular interest as she demonstrated basic combat maneuvering techniques. Humans weren't born with wings. Chen began, executing a perfect zero-rotation. We had to imagine flight before we could achieve it, and once we mastered the air, we immediately began thinking about how to fight in it. She activated the chamber's holographic system, filling the space around them with historical aircraft images. The Floetian student drifted closer, their gaseous forms swirling with excitement within their containment suit. These early flying machines seem incredibly fragile. How did humans survive their first attempts? Not all of us did, Chen replied, bringing up statistics from early aviation history. The first pilots were pioneers and test subjects combined. They flew knowing each attempt could be their last. The Zenthians' massive form moved with surprising grace through the zero-gravity environment as they studied the evolving aircraft designs. The progression from simple gliders to powered flight seems remarkably rapid. Chen nodded, initiating a combat simulation sequence. Warfare accelerated aviation development. Watch this demonstration of early dogfighting techniques. Holographic aircraft engaged in World War I-era combat maneuvers around the floating class. The wind-born student, their ethereal form rippling with interest, attempted to replicate one of the maneuvers. These patterns are similar to our aerial dances, but with lethal intent. Exactly, Chen confirmed, adjusting the simulation to show more complex scenarios. Humans took inspiration from birds, from weather patterns, from anything that moved through the air. We learned to turn basic physics into aerial combat doctrine. The hive mind collective, their shared consciousness spread across multiple floating nodes, formed a pattern matching the flight formations displayed. Query: how did humans coordinate complex aerial maneuvers without natural flight instincts? Chen brought up designs for early flight instruments. We created tools to compensate for our limitations: altimeters, artificial horizons, radar. Each invention helped us become better pilots. She guided the class through a series of basic flight maneuvers, watching as each student attempted to adapt their natural movement styles to human combat techniques. The Methian students' crystalline form sparkled as they spun through a barrel roll. Notice, Chen pointed out, how human aerial combat evolved from simple straight-line attacks to complex three-dimensional warfare. We had to completely reshape our thinking about battlefield space. The wind-born student, who had been practicing increasingly complex maneuvers, suddenly found themselves outmaneuvered by one of Chen's simulation drones. Their ethereal form flickered with surprise. Your combat patterns are unpredictable, Professor. Unpredictability was often our greatest advantage, Chen explained, disabling the drone. When you can't match your opponent's natural abilities, you have to outsmart them. She transitioned the lesson to modern aerial warfare, showing how human aircraft evolved to break sound barriers and reach the edge of space. The Zenthians' bioluminescent patterns pulsed with understanding. You turned your planet's atmosphere into a three-dimensional battlefield. And beyond, Chen added, expanding the simulation to show orbital combat scenarios. Once we mastered atmospheric flight, we immediately began looking higher. The Phloetian student, their containment suits thrusters making minute adjustments, raised an appendage. Professor, our species took millennia to attempt powered flight. How did humans progress so quickly? Chen smiled, beginning the simulation shutdown sequence. Necessity and curiosity. We looked at the birds above us and asked, why not us? Then we kept asking that question about every new frontier we encountered. As the zero-gravity field began to decrease, the wind-worn student lingered, their form hovering at eye level with Chen. We always believed our natural flight gave us superiority in aerial combat. Now I understand why the Council insists we study human warfare methods. A wise perspective, Chen replied, checking her datapad. Tomorrow's lesson on naval warfare might challenge your assumptions even further. I suggest everyone review their underwater survival protocols. The students filed out of the chamber, their movements already showing subtle influences from the human combat techniques they'd learned. Chen watched them go, noting how the wind-born student was practicing one of the defensive maneuvers they'd previously struggled with. The massive aquarium facility at the Galactic Academy darkened as Professor Chen activated the underwater lighting systems. Her students gathered around the observation windows, their diverse forms reflected in the reinforced glass as they watched human-designed submarines maneuver through the depths. The oceans, Chen began, her voice carrying through the acoustic enhancement system, presented humanity with unique challenges. We couldn't breathe underwater, couldn't see clearly in the depths, and struggled with the crushing pressures, so we built machines that could. A hydrogen student, their liquid form contained within a specialized membrane, pressed against the glass with interest. These vessels seem primitive compared to our natural aquatic abilities. Chen smiled, activating a sonar demonstration that sent pulses through the water. Sometimes, limitations breed innovation. Watch this. She directed their attention to a submarine using active sonar to track another vessel hiding behind an underwater ridge. The Xenthian's bioluminescent patterns flickered with surprise. You developed sensing systems that surpass natural echolocation. We had to, Chen replied, bringing up technical specifications on the display. Human eyes are useless in dark water, so we learned to see with sound. Modern sonar can detect a vessel from kilometers away, determine its size, speed, and heading. The Methian student's crystalline structure resonated with the sonar pulses. The precision is remarkable. How did humans overcome the engineering challenges of deep-sea pressure? Chen activated a pressure simulation, showing the evolution of submarine hull designs. Through mathematics, metallurgy, and costly lessons, each failure taught us more about working with the ocean instead of against it. The Hive Mind Collective formed a fluid pattern mirroring the water currents. Query: how did submarine crews maintain operational efficiency in such confined spaces for extended periods? Discipline and innovation, Chen answered, displaying interior layouts of various submarine classes. We developed rotation schedules, atmospheric processing systems, and psychological support protocols. Some crews stayed submerged for months at a time. The hydrogen student, still watching the maneuvering submarines, rippled with confusion. But Professor, our species can detect the slightest water displacement. How did these vessels manage to move stealthily? Chen activated the acoustic dampening demonstration. By understanding how sound travels underwater, we developed ways to minimize our acoustic signature. Modern submarines are quieter than the ambient ocean noise. She guided them through various submarine warfare tactics, showing how humans learned to use thermal layers, geographic features, and sound propagation patterns to their advantage. The students watched in fascination as training vessels demonstrated complex evasion maneuvers. Notice, Chen pointed out, how submarines use the ocean's natural properties for concealment and detection. We turned our environment's challenges into tactical advantages. The Xenthian student, their massive form casting shadows across the observation window, raised an appendage. These vessels carry devastating weapons, yet they prioritize stealth over combat. Why? In submarine warfare, Chen explained, the first detection usually determines the outcome. We learned that survival often depends more on staying hidden than on weapons capability. She brought up historical examples of submarine operations, showing how they influenced surface naval strategy. The Methian student's facets glinted with realization. Your species mastered three-dimensional warfare in an environment completely hostile to your biology. Necessity drove us to adapt, Chen confirmed, beginning the shutdown sequence for the demonstration vessels. Humans couldn't naturally survive in the depths, so we created our own rules for underwater combat. The Hydrosian student oscillated thoughtfully. We always dismissed human naval capability because of your biological limitations. I understand now why that was a serious miscalculation. Chen nodded, checking the facility's pressure readings. Tomorrow's lesson on electronic warfare might seem less physically impressive, but it represents an even more dramatic evolution in human combat capability. As the class prepared to leave, the hive mind collective lingered, their nodes arranged in a pattern suggesting deep contemplation. Final query. Did the ocean's hostility to human life ultimately make your species better warriors? Perhaps, Chen replied, watching the submarines dock in their maintenance bays. But it definitely made us better engineers, better strategists, and more respectful of environments we don't naturally control. The collective buzzed in acknowledgement before departing, leaving Chen to reflect on how her students were beginning to understand that humanity's greatest military achievements often came from overcoming their natural limitations. Professor Chen stood before a wall of holographic displays, each showing different aspects of electronic warfare simulations. Her students gathered around their individual interface stations, their various forms adapted to interact with human-designed computer systems. Today, she began, fingers dancing across the control panel. We'll explore how humans learn to fight in a realm we cannot see, hear, or touch directly. The electronic battlefield exists purely in the flow of data and energy. The Quantian student, their quantum-based consciousness, particularly attuned to electronic systems, raised an energy tendril. Professor, our preliminary scans indicate your electronic defense systems are surprisingly robust. How did humans develop such complex protection mechanisms? Chen initiated the first simulation, showing the evolution of cyber warfare. Through constant adaptation, every successful attack taught us how to build better defenses. Every breach showed us where our shields were weakest. The Zenthians' bioluminescent patterns swirled with interest as they watched visual representations of data attacks and counterattacks. These patterns resemble traditional warfare strategies, but in an abstract dimension. Exactly, Chen confirmed, launching an interactive exercise. Like physical warfare, electronic combat requires strategy, timing, and understanding of terrain. Except our terrain is network architecture and data streams. She divided the class into attack and defense teams, watching as they attempted to breach and protect simulated systems. The Hive Mind Collective spread their consciousness across multiple terminals, their shared awareness providing unique insights into network vulnerabilities. Notice, Chen pointed out, how electronic warfare often mirrors physical combat principles. We have reconnaissance, fortification, deception, and direct engagement, all happening at light speed. The Methian students' crystalline structure pulsed with electromagnetic activity as they analyzed attack patterns. The speed of human responses to electronic threats seems impossible without natural quantum processing abilities. Chen brought up examples of automated defense systems. We created artificial systems to react faster than human consciousness. Our electronic sentries never sleep, never blink, never hesitate. The Quantian student, excelling at the exercises, suddenly found their attack blocked by an unexpected defense protocol. Their energy form flickered with surprise. Your encryption methods defy conventional quantum analysis. Sometimes, Chen explained, displaying the underlying mathematics, the best defense isn't a stronger wall, but a maze so complex that even breaking through doesn't guarantee victory. She guided them through increasingly sophisticated scenarios, demonstrating how humans had turned their understanding of electronics into both weapons and shields. The students watched in fascination as simulated attacks cascaded through systems, triggering layers of automated responses. The Phloetian student, their gaseous form swirling within their containment suit, raised an appendage. "Professor, our species took centuries to develop basic network security. How did humans advance so quickly in this domain?" Chen activated a historical timeline of cyber warfare development, necessity and competition. Every new technology we created immediately became both a weapon and a target. We had to evolve quickly or face digital extinction. The Xenthian student, their massive form hunched over a specially reinforced terminal, looked up from a failed attack attempt. These systems seem to learn from each attack. How do you maintain effective offensive capabilities against such adaptive defenses? Innovation, Chen replied, showing examples of breakthrough attack methods. We learn to think like our own systems, to find weaknesses in our own logic, to question every assumption about what's possible. As the class session neared its end, the Quantian student's energy form pulsed with newfound respect. We always believed our natural quantum processing gave us superiority in electronic warfare. Now I understand why the Council considers human cyber capabilities a crucial study subject. Chen nodded, beginning to power down the simulation systems. Tomorrow's lesson on modern combined arms warfare will show you how we integrate electronic combat with traditional military operations. I suggest everyone review today's encryption protocols. You'll need them. The Hive Mind Collective remained behind, their consciousness still probing the training systems. Query: has human innovation in electronic warfare surpassed your physical combat capabilities? They're complementary, Chen answered, securing the classified training modules. In modern warfare, the physical and electronic battlefields are inseparable. Victory requires mastery of both domains. The collective buzzed in understanding before withdrawing, leaving Chen to contemplate how her students were beginning to grasp that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to adapt it in unexpected ways. The vast simulation chamber hummed to life as Professor Chen activated the combined arms exercise scenario. Her students took their positions at various command stations, each responsible for different aspects of the upcoming operation. Today, she announced, bringing up a detailed holographic battlefield. We'll see how humans learn to coordinate multiple branches of military power simultaneously. This is where everything we've studied comes together. The Xenthian student, their bioluminescent patterns reflecting the tactical displays, monitored the aerial assets. Professor, the complexity of synchronizing these different forces seems overwhelming without shared consciousness. That's why command and control became so crucial, Chen explained, initiating the first phase of the exercise. Watch how each element supports the others. Air power protects ground forces, electronic warfare blinds enemy defenses, naval assets provide long-range support. The Hive Mind Collective, spread across several stations, demonstrated natural talent for coordination. Their shared consciousness easily grasped the principles of synchronized operations. Observation: human military integration shows similarities to collective decision-making. Chen nodded, highlighting real-time coordination between different units. We developed intricate systems of communication and control to achieve something similar to your natural unity. Each component must understand its role in the larger strategy. The Methian students' crystalline form sparkled as they directed electronic warfare assets. The interaction between different combat domains creates unexpected tactical opportunities. Exactly, Chen confirmed, throwing a surprise obstacle into the simulation. React to this. The students scrambled to adjust their strategy as a new threat appeared on their displays. The Quantian student, managing cyber operations, quickly adapted their electronic attacks to support the changing battle plan. The speed of human tactical adaptation exceeds theoretical parameters. Because we train for chaos, Chen explained, monitoring their responses. In combined arms warfare, the ability to adapt quickly often matters more than raw power. She guided them through increasingly complex scenarios, watching as they learned to coordinate their actions. The Phoenician student, controlling naval assets, successfully synchronized a cruise missile strike with an electronic warfare attack. Notice, Chen pointed out, how each successful operation requires multiple branches working in perfect harmony. A break in any link can compromise the entire mission. The Xenthian student, now fully engaged in coordinating air support, looked up from their display. These tactics seem to multiply force effectiveness beyond the sum of individual components. That's the essence of combined arms doctrine, Chen confirmed, introducing another tactical challenge. We learned that synchronized operations create effects far greater than any single military branch could achieve alone. The simulation intensified as she added more variables: weather conditions, equipment failures, communication disruptions. The students adapted quickly, their different species' perspectives bringing unique solutions to each challenge. Professor, the hive mind collective buzzed, their nodes pulsing with activity. Human military doctrine appears to artificially recreate collective consciousness through technology and training. Chen smiled, adjusting the battlefield conditions. An interesting observation. We had to find ways to coordinate complex operations without natural telepathy or shared awareness. The Quantian students' energy form flickered with sudden understanding as they coordinated another successful operation. Each human commander must think both independently and as part of the larger force. Balance is crucial, Chen agreed, beginning the final phase of the exercise. Too much independence leads to chaos. Too much control stifles initiative. We had to find the right mixture of discipline and flexibility. As the simulation reached its climax, the students demonstrated remarkable improvement in their coordination. Different combat branches moved in concert, supporting each other with increasing precision. The Xenthians' patterns glowed with excitement as their combined strategy succeeded. We've always studied individual aspects of human warfare. Seeing them unified explains much about your species' military effectiveness. Chen began powering down the simulation systems, clearly pleased with their performance. Tomorrow's final session will test everything you've learned. I suggest everyone review the principles of force multiplication and synchronized operations. The Hive Mind Collective lingered after class, their consciousness still processing the exercise. Final query. Does human combined arms doctrine represent the pinnacle of your military evolution? No, Chen replied, saving the day's training data. It's just another step. As long as we face new challenges, our methods will continue to evolve. That's something I hope you'll all remember from this course. The final day of class found Professor Chen's students assembled in the Grand Lecture Hall, each preparing to present their comprehensive analysis of human warfare evolution. The atmosphere crackled with nervous energy as diverse species readied their conclusions. Today isn't about regurgitating facts, Chen began, surveying her class. It's about demonstrating understanding of why human warfare developed as it did, and what that teaches us about both humanity and ourselves. The Xenthian student stepped forward first, their bioluminescent patterns forming complex analytical displays. My research focused on how humans turned physical limitations into strategic advantages. Each environmental challenge sparked new innovations. Chen nodded encouragingly as the massive beam projected a holographic analysis of human adaptation patterns. The presentation showed how terrestrial constraints had repeatedly forced creative solutions. The Methian student followed, their crystalline form refracting light as they moved. I analyzed the progression of human weapon development. The fascinating pattern isn't in the weapons themselves, but in how each innovation changed tactical doctrine. They demonstrated how human combat evolution followed recurring cycles of offense and defense, each breakthrough triggering corresponding countermeasures. The class watched intently as familiar technologies appeared in new contexts. The Phoenicians' gaseous form swirled excitedly within their containment suit as they presented next. My focus was human psychological adaptation to warfare. Despite lacking natural defensive capabilities, humans develop remarkable resilience. Their analysis revealed how human military training methods evolved to prepare soldiers for increasingly complex battle environments. The presentation highlighted how mental preparation became as crucial as physical training. The Quantian students' energy form pulsed with confidence as they shared their findings. I examined human electronic warfare development. The speed of innovation suggests humans possess unique pattern recognition capabilities that compensate for their biological processing limitations. Chen watched with approval as they demonstrated how human cyber warfare had evolved from simple security measures to complex predictive defense systems. The class murmured with interest at several unexpected conclusions. The HiveMind Collective presented last, their shared consciousness creating a multi-dimensional analysis. We study human command structures. Despite lacking collective consciousness, humans achieve remarkable coordination through technological and procedural innovation. Their presentation showed how human military organizations evolved to balance central control with individual initiative, creating flexible yet unified fighting forces. The analysis drew surprising parallels between human command systems and natural collective intelligence. As the presentations concluded, Chen addressed the class. Your analyses show something crucial about human warfare. It's not our technology or tactics that make us formidable, but our ability to learn, adapt, and overcome limitations. The Zenthian students' patterns swirled thoughtfully. Professor, studying human warfare has changed our understanding of combat effectiveness. Raw capability matters less than adaptability and innovation. Precisely, Chen confirmed, bringing up a final display showing the interconnected nature of human military development. Each advance in human warfare came from facing and overcoming challenges that other species might have considered insurmountable. The Methian students' crystalline structure resonated with sudden insight. This explains why the Council emphasizes studying human military history. It's not about the weapons or tactics, but about understanding adaptive thinking. Chen smiled, initiating the graduation protocols. Remember, the most important lesson isn't about how humans fight, but about how we learn. Every limitation we faced became an opportunity for innovation. The HiveMind Collective buzzed with final questions. Query: will this understanding of human warfare contribute to greater galactic stability? That depends on how you use this knowledge, Chen replied, distributing graduation credentials. Understanding human warfare should teach you to respect not just our capabilities, but the innovative spirit behind them. As the ceremony concluded, the Zenthian student approached Chen one last time. Professor, when we first started, we thought we were learning about human limitations. Instead, we learned about unlimited potential. Chen nodded, powering down the classroom systems for the final time. That's the true lesson of human warfare. It's not about being the strongest, fastest, or most naturally gifted. It's about never accepting limitations as final. The students filed out, their diverse forms carrying with them not just knowledge of human military history, but a deeper understanding of how necessity, innovation, and determination could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Chen watched them go, knowing that these future military leaders would approach warfare with a new perspective. One that recognized that true strength lay not in natural advantages, but in the ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome.